Hey everyone, this is Dino, and today I'm going to do a review on this phone. This is the BLU Grand 5.5 HD. Now this was supposed to be an unboxing session, however I forgot the box at home, so this is going to be a review on the phone and my user experience with it. Okay. Before I go into the review though, I just wanted to say a quick shout out to Tony Hong from Pioneer Mobile. He was kind enough to send me the phone for review, so thanks a lot, Tony. I appreciate it. Okay, so this is the phone. As you can see, it's a big phone. It's a 5.5 inch phone, which is fairly common these days. All right. On the right hand side of the phone, you've got your power and your volume rocker. On the left side, you've got no buttons. On the top, you'll find your headphone jack. And on the bottom, your USB charging port. On the back, you've got your camera and your flash. And on the front, you will see the camera there and also the LED flash. Okay? Now the back of the phone is made out of aluminum metal, which feels great. It feels like this is a premium phone. And the front is covered with this glass that's really nice. And I have no problems with fingerprints, so it doesn't really attract a lot of fingerprint when you're using it. So let me talk about the specs of the phone real quick. All right, I'm going to read this out, so just bear with me. Okay, so the screen of the phone is 5.5 inches. It's an IPS LCD, and it's got a resolution of 1280 by 720, 267 ppi. The camera on the back is 8 megapixel autofocus with an LED flash. The front camera is a 5 megapixel shooter, and it's got an LED flash as well. Both cameras can record 1080p video at 30 frames per second, which is pretty good. All right, the processor of the phone is a 1.3 gigahertz quad-core CPU. The chipset is actually MediaTek, and it is the MT6580. The GPU is a Mali 400 in there. So those are actually budget phone chipsets, but they're plenty sufficient for day-to-day use. The memory is 8 gigabytes, and you can expand that by adding an SD card up to 64 gigabytes. The RAM is 1 gigabyte, and the battery on this phone is 2500 milliamp hour. On the wireless side, it supports 802.11 BGN. It does not support AC, so it's not the fastest Wi-Fi out there, but you know, it certainly does the job. It has Bluetooth and GPS as well. On the cellular side, it supports dual SIM. So when you pop open the back, you will see a slot for SIM 1 and SIM 2. The SIM 1 could be for your primary SIM. If you travel outside the country, you can pop in a second SIM in there for that other country, and you'll have basically 2 SIMs in there for seamless use. It does not support 4G LTE, however. It supports 3.5 HSPA+. And it is unlocked when you buy this for GSM purposes. So you can use this for AT&T, for T-Mobile, or for any other GSM-based carrier out there. And the OS on this device out of the box is Android 6.0 Marshmallow. Okay, so when I powered it on, I didn't need to upgrade the OS on the device. It came that way from the factory. So this phone, I don't know if I mentioned this, but the price is $100, and you can purchase this from Amazon or from the various retail stores online. I believe you can buy this at Best Buy as well for that price. Okay, so let me talk about my user experience with this phone. I've spent the week using it as my daily driver, and my daily driver is usually the ZTE Axon, but I'm no stranger to the budget phones, okay? I have used several of them. I've used the Moto G, the Moto E, a couple of the low-end Windows phones. So, I know the expectations with a budget phone. I know the performance expectations. So I had a feeling what I would expect out of this device, and I was basically right. So anyways, the pros and the cons, okay? So on the pro side, the screen is nice and bright, even outdoors, okay? All right, I had no problems viewing the screen even under direct sunlight. So, definitely a good screen. The colors are vibrant. The contrast is good, and overall, I think the screen is awesome on this phone. Okay. As far as the feel of the phone, once again, this is a budget phone, $100 phone. And it feels really good in the hand. It feels heavy. It feels like it's made well. The materials feel good when you touch them. The screen is really nice. There's no creaks. It doesn't bend. So it feels like a substantial phone when you hold it. So the build quality is excellent on this device. Okay? Once again, it does run Marshmallow, which is really nice and smooth. It's a really smooth OS. And even though the specs on this phone are mediocre, the OS, because it's so well optimized, runs really smoothly on the phone. Okay, so I didn't really encounter any noticeable, hiccups. So it's pretty smooth, all right? And again, the processor, even though it's a low-end processor, it does the job. At least for my needs and purposes, I have no complaints. So for me, the primary requirement for a phone is for communication. So that means email, text messaging. Occasionally, I would do, the video streaming, Netflix, YouTube, so on and so forth. So, anything I threw at it as far as those things are concerned, I had no issues with it. And I'm pretty sure that if you do social media on this phone, you won't have any problems. Okay, so the processor is really good enough, I would say, for the day-to-day usage of a smartphone. Okay, about the battery life. So the battery life on this phone is actually excellent. Even though it's only a 2500 milliamp hour battery, the combination of having Marshmallow as an OS with its battery saving features, the low resolution screen, it's not full HD, it's only 720p, and basically the low-end processor as well, leads to an excellent battery life. So as far as battery life is concerned, I can get through a full day with this phone with no problems. And usually at the end of the day, I would have about 30 to 40% battery life left. which is good. You will notice two speakers, one down here and one up here, and that is excellent for a budget phone. Normally on a budget phone you will have one speaker, and they're usually very small, sometimes placed on the back, sometimes on the front, but the volume that you get on those speakers is usually very poor. Even if you turn up the volume, you can't really use it for, let's say, watching a movie, unless you're in a really quiet room. With the speakers on this phone are excellent. You hear sound coming from both speakers, and when you turn it up, you can actually hear the content that you want to consume, even in a semi-loud environment. So thumbs up for the the speakers on this phone. All right, and the front camera on this phone is actually pretty decent. It actually is a 5 megapixel, as I mentioned earlier, and it's good for selfies because it has an LED flash. So if you're the type that's into selfies, or if you want to do video chatting, on your phone, the camera on this phone is really good for those purposes. Let me talk about the cons. Okay, the first on my list is the internal storage. 8 gigabytes. All right, with Marshmallow loaded to this device, after all of the updates, I was left with only 2.5 gigabytes left of storage. Even for me, as I'm not a power user, I don't download a lot of apps, that's not big enough. Okay, and considering in general most of the people out there like to download apps, and those would take up space, obviously, plus the space that those apps use when you use them would add up. So what I'm trying to say is 2.5 is really not enough. Even if you expand the memory with a 64 gigabyte card, and you use Marshmallow's ability to actually merge the internal and the external storage, it's still not a good solution. Yes, you can install a lot of apps on the SD card after you've done that, but a lot of apps like to install into the primary or internal storage, and since it's so limited, you won't be able to install any more of those apps once you've used up that space. So the biggest issue for me on this phone is the internal storage. I think that even budget phones going forward should at least have 16 gigabytes of storage. Okay? What else? Let's see. Okay, so the back camera, okay? So the back camera would be your primary shooter, right? And in good lighting condition, it's sufficient. I mean, it'll capture, good pictures, and the colors would be vibrant, so on and so forth. So no issues really when the lighting condition is good. But in a poorly lit environment, the pictures are just not good at all. Even with the flash is weak. The flash does not have enough, brightness, I would say, to illuminate the subject that you're taking a picture of. So, the camera in poor lighting conditions, even with the flash, is not very good. And then the 1 gigabyte of RAM that's in this device, at least for me, it was good enough. With what I use the device for, as far as emails, text messaging, the YouTube, the Netflix, music, streaming music. it's plenty sufficient. But if you're the type that likes to use a lot of apps in the background, then 1 gigabyte is not good enough. I think that it's too small. I think that even budget phones these days should come with at least 2 gigabytes of RAM. Anything below that would not be enough for general use, I would say, okay? And then lastly, even though the build quality of this phone is excellent, it feels really slippery to hold, all right? There have been many occasions where I thought I was gonna drop this phone because of how slippery it felt in my hand. So my recommendation, if you do get this phone, is to buy a case for it, so that that does not happen. Okay. Overall, I think this phone is a good phone. There's definitely quite a few pros that I liked about this, and some cons that I think would be deal breakers. Okay. But it's up to you. If you're, like me, who's basically a light user, I would say, this may be good enough. But if you're a power user, and if you're the type of user that likes to download apps and likes to have a lot of apps running in the background, this may not be for you. If you're the type that likes to shoot pictures and likes to, render beautiful pictures, then this may not be for you. Okay? I think that's it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask or leave in the comment section. And I hope this video is useful, in your evaluation of the phone. And thanks for watching.